Welcome to NEK-VT Rocks, and my guests today are Chase and Aaliyah, and you're from a group called Teens for Change.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about it. Ma'am, that's the Queen, not me.
Yes, Pam.
Thank you. They do rhyme, though.
Yeah, they do.
You must be from the South.
Yeah.
Nobody up here says ma'am. And where I come from, it truly is only an address for the Queen.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm my own royalty now. You're all at North Country?
Yes, ma'am.
And
Pam.
who started the group?
I think we all kind of started it together, but I think...
He's shaking his head. Chase
You started
agree.
it. You started it.
Okay, I started it, I guess. Yeah.
How come?
So I was facing a lot of discrimination, racial discrimination or whatever. And so I was up many nights. I kind of cried myself to sleep a lot. And I wanted to create a group for the other kids that are colored, and the other kids that love other people that aren't the same gender or the same gender,
Yeah.
Just a support group for everybody so that people wouldn't feel alone. And like Chase is none of those things.
He's a straight white guy.
Yeah, but Chase has he's faced a lot of stuff also. I mean, just being friends with colored kids or kids that love other people, he lost many friends because of that. So because he is what the normal stereotype would look like of
Right.
The normal at our school, he faces a lot also because he is not like everybody else.
Right.
So yeah, I wanted to create a group for that.
And how many of you are in the group? Actively in the group?
I would say about probably 15
Yeah,
show
that's
up
great.
to the talking.
Yeah, to the meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you focus on all issues?
We really, we're
We
kind
focus
of,
on most, yeah.
Yeah.
We're kind of, if anybody has an idea and everybody agrees with it, we all kind of just work and have something set up for that issue.
That's great.
Yeah.
Because the first way that I heard about you clearly was because of your demonstration or organization downtown on gun control.
Yes.
So clearly that's something that you all recognize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It went good, I think.
Yeah, it went good.
Yeah, we didn't get as many people as we would hoped, but we know it's an issue that in our community that's not very, it's not the same idea or point of view as us, so.
Right. But it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And it must be a big deal for many of the kids in your school who are not necessarily part of your regular group.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I mean, the school is filled with people who would like change but are too scared to let their friends know that they are. I mean, our group is open, but a lot of people don't want to join because of the way that they would be perceived by the people they hang out with.
Exactly.
Because
So they'd become one of them as opposed to one of us, whatever us is
Yeah.
in that case.
exactly, it's just separation
sad.
again.
Yeah. So now we're going to be creating a group that's just support. And so, your names can't be put out in display. It's just a conversation with people that have the same ideas and thought process as you. And then there's going to be a group that's for the action. And they don't mind their names being out there. They want their names to be out
Yeah.
there.
So an allies group.
Yeah. So it wouldn't take away the chances from the other people having support.
Have you had blowback because of your group? Teens for Change?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When we were doing the gun protest,
Yeah.
we have an Instagram page, and we actually received in our comments, it was basically all negative feedback. We've gotten a comment saying that they were going to bring their gun and end it, or make sure they stop
Wow.
it themselves. So we've definitely gotten a lot of negative feedback. I've gotten cussed out a couple of times, but I knew that was gonna come, so
Yeah.
I wasn't.
Did you have a police officer in your school?
Yes, Royce.
Yeah. Was he aware of the blowback that you got for that demonstration?
No.
I don't know.
We don't really keep in contact with Royce,
Yeah.
so
He's not on your email list.
No.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's something that he maybe should be aware of,
Mhm.
particularly when you get threats.
Yeah.
That's really not okay.
Yeah, but I know they're not going to do anything. I mean, we notified the police that we were going to be holding the protest, so there were some police cars
Yes.
coming through, but if something would have happened, I mean, I don't think anything would have happened. I mean, nothing happened.
No.
So
They were a no-show, so.
There's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of mouthy people.
yes.
But not necessarily action.
hmm
Did people understand that you were being specific about gun control as opposed to I presume you weren't saying a blanket, nobody can have a gun
Yeah.
here, although some of us wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either.
That was a vocal point for me specifically, was we would get a lot more open-minded people if they knew what we were specifically talking about.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely a big cutoff between regulation of guns and
Right.
completely taking away guns,
Yes.
and there are a lot of people in between that support one or the other.
Absolutely.
And I think if we didn't specify what we were specifically trying to get out of the protest,
Right.
a lot of people would be misled in what we were meaning.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of people were still misled because they didn't actually read it. They just saw gun protest and they
Right.
automatically thought that we were trying to take away their guns.
Mhm.
And we're just trying to make it safer so that a gun doesn't get into the wrong hands.
Well, some people aren't going to listen.
Yeah.
There are some people who you could lay it out right in front of them, and they would still choose to see what they want to.
Mhm.
That's
So,
absolutely
Yeah,
right.
there's a lot of closed-minded
true.
people.
Yeah, there are, and isn't that sad? And what's really sad is it's my generation and a couple of generations behind me, and we would always have hoped that it would be different in your generation.
Yeah.
And maybe it is for some, but there's still a lot of kids with some opinions that are surprising.
But that all comes down to who they're being raised by, I feel like. It all starts in the home,
Yeah.
and then if it's not in the home, it's who they hang out with.
Right.
So I think that it all still relates back to the home life, like who are raising them. I have a lot of thoughts that my mom has. And so
She
I would
implanted them, didn't she?
so I think it's the same for everybody else. Everybody they either think how their parents think, or they don't
They
at all.
go to the opposite
Yeah,
side,
it's
right.
like there's no in between, I feel like.
Yeah, I think you're right. And hopefully in time that will change.
Yeah.
I think that some people listening to this are going to be shocked when they hear that you've faced discrimination, because they think it doesn't exist up here.
Yeah.
That it doesn't exist anymore. We dealt with that however many decades ago. And they're absolutely shocked to find that it's alive and well in little old Newport and Derby and Troy and everywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you handle it?
The group.
Yeah.
I think the group has really helped me through it, and so has my mom.
Yeah.
Just talking about it and sharing my experiences, and being able to know that because the group was created, that other people have support now,
Yeah.
and so they won't go through it alone like I did.
Right.
If I could comment on, like,
Do.
I don't want to speak for you,
No, go
but
ahead.
from an outside perspective,
Mhm.
I've seen how Aaliyah most of the time handles the way that she gets so much discrimination and comments at her school. At first, I think she went through this stage of understanding that she needs to stay strong while these people are doing these things,
Yeah.
and that they're not going to stop if she just says stop. And
Right.
I mean, I saw her go through that stage of, like, accepting and taking the punches, and then after a while, when she realized that it was a genuine issue and it wasn't just a couple bad apples,
Mhm.
she has fought back more than I would have ever expected. I mean, when I think about Aaliyah, let's just talk about this because you're upset about it, she thinks about, how are we going to confront this person? And I've seen multiple people just... Aaliyah is a very action-based person,
Mhm.
and she is not afraid to step forward and tell somebody what they're doing
That's great.
and how it's affecting people and how they are wrong for it. And she really lays down the law. If I were to get an Aaliyah scolding, I would be...
Do they get it?
No.
No.
No, they don't get it, but
None
Aaliyah
of them?
doesn't stop.
No,
None of them get it?
No,
That's
they're always
really
like,
sad.
Yeah. Yep.
That's actually awful.
I think it's mainly because they've been trained to know what they're going to be told.
Yeah.
Like, if Aaliyah goes up to somebody who's being racist towards her
Mhm.
and tells them exactly what's on her mind, those people are going to know what's on her mind because they know what they're doing.
Mhm, of course
So
they
when
do.
Aaliyah brings it up, it's nothing unexpected.
Right.
I mean, they can say, okay, whatever, you're just one person, I'll turn around, I'll look at my 15 other racist friends and not care,
Mhm.
right? It's just a kind of mob mentality at this point.
Yeah.
How does the school handle it?
I mean,
Minimal effort.
yeah. Well, I mean, maybe there is effort, but I
Minimal
don't
effort.
feel-
You're not seeing it.
yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I've reported a couple cases, and it's just to the point where I don't feel like I can report it anymore because nothing's gonna happen. So I'd rather take it into my own hands and say what I need to say rather than just keep
Right.
quiet and go report it for nothing to happen.
What if your group went together to the school board?
Oh, to the school board.
I think that would cause a lot of, I would stir everything up for sure.
Uh-huh.
For sure.
Is that a bad thing?
No,
No.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's about time it gets
Yeah.
stirred up a little because everybody's sitting so comfortably in the state of false truths that
Yes.
there's nothing wrong, that the issues are gone, just disappeared. They're not.
Yeah.
Aaliyah still walks through those hallways and gets the same comments.
It's vile. It's so vile. And you're obviously not the only kid who's getting
Oh,
that.
no, of course not.
It's just unacceptable.
Yeah.
The group that we would be able to get in contact with at the school, we have, and there's obviously a no tolerance situation at the school for this type of stuff, but there's a difference between no tolerance and no action,
Right.
and actually there's almost no difference when it comes to the school. I mean, there's close to no action being taken,
Mm-hmm.
because if I could give an example of my own, I was on the school bus one day,
Mhm.
and I go through continuous homophobic slurs being thrown at me every day, even though I'm not part of the LGBTQ
Mhm.
community. I'm not any type of minority, yet I still face these things just based on the way I dress and the way I present myself. And I was on the bus one day, and I got off the bus, and for my bus route I have to walk back to have to pass the bus again to get to my
Mhm.
house, and every
Right.
time I would pass the bus, they'd roll down the windows and throw things at me and scream slurs at me every day. And finally, the camera caught them,
Good.
and this guy got suspended for 2 days. And when he came back, he came up to me and he told me, "You got me suspended." And then the issue only got worse, because obviously at home it was no issue.
Right.
I mean, the parents had to be informed for them to be suspended, yet they came back with the same attitude and no
Mhm.
difference, which means the place they are raised enforces that type of behavior, and
Yeah.
there's almost no way of stopping it if the root just keeps feeding the homophobia. There's no...
Right.
I want to add on to that. I had a situation when I first moved here. There was this kid in my class, and he's a minority, and he was commenting stereotypes at me, commenting slurs. When I first moved here, he was like, "What gang are you in?" And he would call me the N-word and stuff. So that was my first report. I think,
Yeah.
and he just got called up to the office or wherever he went, and then a couple days later he came back and he was talking with his friends, and I overheard him, and he was saying, my dad was like, "Go ahead and call her it again, I don't care." And I'm like, so it's definitely the home base adding on to that, it's definitely
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't confront him that time, but
I mean,
Yeah.
you tried confronting, and ultimately nothing came out of it, and you've tried it multiple times, so
Yeah.
I don't blame you. If one path isn't working, you have to dose your
Yeah.
own.
Right.
So.
And yet, as Vermont becomes a more integrated state, and it's happening really slowly, but it's happening, there really has to be some change.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard that your group is pioneering that, but you are.
I think it's really hard for a lot of people to realize what situation they are in,
Mm-hmm.
because if you, I can't say that because I can't speak for other people, but I have friends who grew up here as minorities and were raised here and are
Right.
still here now and are almost blind to what's happening and join in on it because who else were they going to be friends with?
Right.
Right? I mean, if not for those people, who else were they going to mingle with? Who else were they going to feel like at home with at school?
Right.
So they ended up doing what they were doing, and that ends up in situations that Aaliyah had to go through, where the people who are the minorities are deflecting and making sure that they are also being racist and homophobic, so that
Right.
they don't get the comments thrown at them.
Sure. Yeah.
And a lot of the time, they just don't see what's wrong with it because they've never really run into a situation where that could be pointed out to them, what they're doing, because everybody's just in full support of it. It just breeds more and more and more of the same issue because there's nobody to tell them, like, they know it's wrong, but there's nobody to tell them, like, why it's wrong
Yeah.
Right.
and what they're doing.
And what the impact is on you as people, all of us, and the impact is there, and it's a knife going in again and again and again, and you either go dead to that feeling, or you do what you guys are doing, which is fighting back, organizing and fighting back. And this is the 21st century,
Yeah.
well into the 21st century, and yet this is a 19th century battle. It's pathetic. It really is. And I don't mean that kids and adults are not going to be obnoxious about something, always. But really?
Yeah.
This?
Of everything.
Yeah,
Something,
exactly.
something that's already been fought against numerous times. I mean, the things that Aaliyah has to go through each day are things that, I mean, me just being there to support her and hearing the things that she goes through every day is something that drags down on me.
Yeah.
But I
Yes.
can't imagine how it is actually having to go through it every day.
Right.
And hearing those things and knowing that when you wake up and you go to school, that is what you have to look forward to, is something that nobody should have to go through.
No. No, they shouldn't. And what's really sad is that school doesn't see it that way.
Yep.
Or intellectually they do, because probably the school really doesn't want any of their students to feel discriminated against.
Yeah.
But they don't get the day-to-day reality or how to handle it.
And you can tell them how many times you want. It just still feels like it's in the same spot, like it's in the same
Right.
place.
I think
Right.
something that really drags the school back too is there are extremists on both sides, and for a lot of people that holds back the idea of really helping, because if you have an issue in the school, right, and you bring it to the school board or the principal, but are just purely speaking on emotion and have
Yes.
no form of actually changing things or no ideas on how to fix things, you are bringing an issue to attention that was already in attention,
Right.
and ultimately nothing is really happening because you are not bringing a way of fixing things forward.
Right.
So for a lot of people I've seen in the school, a lot of the time their first question is, do you have a way of changing things, or are you just complaining to me? Because
Right.
we've put in our emotional piece where it's like, you can't do that, no, but like, do you have any ideas on how to actually change things? Because if you're just coming to me with these issues that I already know about,
Right.
then I can't really do anything productive for you here.
Yes, but, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and that's a really great way of handling, but reality, it's not your problem to solve. That is something the school and the school board should be responsible for. Now, if you can pull up the sort of level of maturity and problem solving to be able to put together an action plan which you can hand to the school, that's amazing. But really, it should not be your problem to fix.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about blaming the victim. That makes me nuts.
Yeah, I agree. But
yeah, I hear you.
the school, the people who have the authority to set up that and make a change won't. And it's because it's too easy for them to sit back and not deal with any of the discrimination that's going on,
Right.
and to just sit back and allow it to happen and just turn away. and it's just much easier to do nothing than to do something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that have to deal with that are the people who walk through those hallways and know what's coming every day.
Right. Yes, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have an action plan? Is that something you guys and the rest of your group are going to work on?
Oh, yeah, we're working on that this school year. I asked for some ideas on what do we want action in. We've gotten many ideas. We gotten I was about to say action. We gotten racial discrimination, LGBTQ discrimination.
We've gotten, I think those are the big main things.
Yeah, those are the main two.
But we've gotten a lot of need for a place for people with like mental health issues to go.
Yes.
Which I will say, North Country has a very good wellness center.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
The wellness center in North Country is one of the few things that I can really commend about the school.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It is a very helpful tool.
It is.
Very helpful. I mean, I'd say the only issue is it's a little difficult to really introduce yourself into that area. But once you do, it is literally the most helpful tool I can think of
It is,
when it comes to mental health awareness and health. The wellness center is amazing. But a lot of the time, they can't help with homophobia and racism.
No.
Yeah.
They also can't help outside of the school with mental health issues because we have so few mental health resources in the state
Mm-hmm.
and in other states too,
Yeah.
which is really a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I think that if we help with the mental health issues, it would lead back to many of our causes. It would lead back to less gun, mass murders, school shootings.
Yes.
It would lead to less suicides with guns. Like, there's a lot of things that mental health deals with guns, and that's why we also did the protest.
Yeah.
And it has many other stuff
Yeah.
to deal with it.
There's
too.
a lot behind guns.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And there's a lot behind mental illness that affects everything.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
The way humans act are based on the way humans feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly the last 2 years of lockdown have not helped anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And they've certainly made it easier for people to speak what is on their minds without censoring anything. Just sort of mind-blowing, but...
The shutdown really helped a lot of people push away the fact that there are people who could get hurt by what they say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know personally, for me, I never thought about, like, during the lockdown, I had no thought on homophobia or racism because I was just in a house full of
Same.
people who were just like me,
Right.
and I had no interaction with anybody that is different than me for close to 2 years. I mean, Vermont is so in its own bubble that me,
Right.
somebody who was born in Vermont, did not have a genuine talk or interaction with a person of color until 6th grade, when it was my gym teacher. No, 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
In 7th grade for my gym teacher, and I was 13.
Wow.
And I had not had a genuine talk with a person of color until I was 13.
That's pretty amazing.
I mean, I'd seen people of color like every once in a while,
Yeah.
but never talked to somebody that was a minority.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you moved from a southern state.
Yeah,
where
I
you-
moved from Atlanta, Georgia.
Dang.
And then up here, where suddenly you were a novelty on the street.
Yeah.
Exotic, right?
Yes.
Which is not always a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been called exotic before. I mean, when one of my teachers saw my face for the first time, they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're like exotic and weird," and I'm like,
Your teacher
"My
said
teacher
that?
said that." And I was like,
Wow.
I was like, "Thanks."
I think.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what that means.
Does that teacher have any understanding of what they just said? Probably
know.
not.
Probably not, no.
That is bizarre.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's funny.
That sort of leaves me speechless, actually.
Yeah, I know, it left me speechless.
It's crazy. I mean, just to have that middle school gym teacher of mine was something that was like pretty crazy for my school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was one kid of color in the entire school, and they moved after like 1st grade, I'm pretty sure. And I mean, when that gym teacher came in, they were one of the most important people in my life at the time. Like,
Sure.
I had never gotten that type of support from somebody that wasn't in my family for so
Yeah.
long, and it helped me understand
Sure.
that people are just people, and that, like,
Uh-huh.
sure, at first I was like, I've never talked to a person of color before, like, this is special. At the end of it, it was just, this is my gym teacher, and they're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And they're very helpful.
Kudos to the school for actually hiring somebody,
Yeah.
which again is unusual up here. I mean, how many teachers are there in your school who are people of color?
I don't think I've seen one.
No. They still face discrimination if they have a little bit of diversity.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's teachers in our school. There's a teacher that got punched in the face actually because she was of a different race.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and it's weird because everybody, my friends, they don't say racial stuff to me, but if they have a teacher that is of a different race, they'll come and they'll like talk about it to me, and they'll like say racial stuff about them, and I'm like, just because we're not the same race doesn't mean like I don't see wrong with it, like, or I don't see wrong with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so sometimes I have to check my own friends.
It's an issue, especially because it's so desensitized. Like, racism is a slippery slope.
Oh,
Yes, it is.
And a very easy one to fall into if you're in a community like this.
Or any community.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to sort of sail along in whatever bubble you've lived in and just not be aware.
Yeah.
It's unconscious, so much of it.
Yeah, it is.
There are big, I mean, I'd say the leading group in our high school are people who are racist and homophobic, but they see almost no wrong with it, and it's very easy to join that group. I mean, all you have to do, you don't have to look like them, you don't have to, like, talk like them. It's nothing like that. You just have to go along with it and see nothing wrong with the issues going on.
And yet, up here, a really high percentage of people who've lived here all their life are part Indigenous.
Mm.
And you would think that that would change the balance of racism, but apparently not, because the discrimination towards Indigenous people here historically has been really high.
Very.
And that's changing,
Mhm.
because some of the tribes are doing a lot of education. But it sounds like it hasn't made a dent in some of your school friends.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, not at all.
I think it might also have to do with people finding no identity in themselves around here,
Right.
because I know personally when I looked around the community and I went, what's special about me? I said, like, close to nothing. You're like everybody else here. You were born here.
Mhm.
You look like everybody else. You grew up with everybody else.
Mhm.
There's nearly nothing special, like, physically about you or, like, culturally about you, but your personality and, like, who you are as a person. And I think for a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
that's a sense of, like, if there's nothing special about me, there has to be something special about the crowd I'm in. So it creates, like, a mob mentality almost,
Right.
where it's like, if I personally, as a white straight man in the state, don't feel special or have any, or don't feel like I can be identified by, like, who I am,
Right.
then my group should be all the people who look like me. And it's just a mob mentality of people who want to feel special.
Well, that's certainly been present politically for the last few years. I think it was always present, but it certainly got amplified. I mean, when you have a president who feels that it's perfectly okay to walk around assaulting verbally entire groups of people, then that ought to be raising some flags.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And not the flags that say, oh, it's okay to say that,
Right.
because
right.
it's not. It's not okay to feel it either, that that's
Yeah.
okay, or to think it.
If you were to ask anybody in this community, if you were to ask them, what is your heritage, they'd be excited to answer.
Yes.
Because that would be a chance for them to feel like there's an identity behind them and that there's, like, something culturally to be proud of. But, I mean, if I look at Vermont and I go, like, this is where I'm from, this is what I have to look at, I see a place where I have to, like, as a 16-year-old going into sophomore year, help in a group that is bringing up issues of racism and homophobia. That's what I think of. Like, I don't think
Right.
of a place where I can go like, here's culture, here's something I can be proud of. Like, there's nothing. I think it's a big identity issue for a lot of people.
Right. When I first came to this country, and clearly I'm a foreigner, it was really weird to me that nobody identified or appeared to identify as, quote, American. They all introduced themselves to me as I'm a Scottish American, an Irish American, an Italian American, a Caribbean American. And from somebody who never thought of identity in those terms, it was very strange.
Mhm.
How come there is no identity of America? Because the way America sells itself elsewhere is this gargantuan melting pot, which is also a weird imagery, but you know. But it is strange.
Yeah.
I think I have an answer. I mean,
Do.
everybody. Our selling point for America was always that everybody can come and everybody can make a life, the American dream,
Uh-huh.
if they work hard enough. And that resulted in huge immigrations with a lot of different cultures and a lot of different people.
Mhm.
And something I can say about America is you will find culture in every corner,
Oh yeah.
no matter what.
Mhm.
I went to Maine, and there was a Jamaican food like joint in Maine, northern
Mhm.
Maine, and it was doing well.
Sure.
There's no pushback on people bringing their culture to these places.
Mhm.
So when you have to identify as a specific culture, it's because if you look at America, you see hundreds of different cultures all
Mhm.
mixed into one.
Right.
And there's not really one thing you can settle on as like, this is what America represents anymore.
Mhm.
Because America represents everybody in it and all the different cultures that were brought here.
In theory.
In theory, yeah.
And
It would be really nice if that was true.
I think it's closer to true than you'd think, but I think that we're caught up in our own issues that we
Right.
can't see ourselves from how other people see us.
Absolutely.
And that's fair enough. I'd rather be focused on our own issues and working on fixing them than in a false sense of like truth that everything's okay and that we're perfect. And
Uh-huh. Yes. And America's certainly getting blowback from the rest of the world,
Oh,
which
yeah.
says, hey, you're not as great as you think you are.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
we hold ourselves up on a pedestal, but
Right.
you can't deny the fact that we have a lot of people here from a lot of different places,
Absolutely.
and they deal with racism
Yes.
around the entire country,
Mhm.
and there are issues for them, but there are a lot of diversity and a lot of people here,
Yes.
and they stay. And I mean, I've seen a lot of people being like, there's these countries that I want to move to, right? I mean, this one sucks, I'm moving here, right? And that's what I've heard a lot, especially
Mhm.
from the people in our group and a lot of people around here. And the main ones are usually Canada or like Norway or like people like in that northern region.
Mhm.
And I was like, you do realize the reason those places don't have as big like of these issues as here is because they have almost no diversity.
Mhm.
Like if you look at those Nordic countries, their
Maybe.
diversity like percentages are way lower than ours.
Right.
And
It's true.
yet they still go through those racism issues,
Mhm.
but we have a way bigger issue because we have everybody here.
There's
and
more
a lot
of us, right.
And a lot of racist people.
But I think Canada has a lot of diversity because I'm
Yeah,
Canadian.
no, yeah, Canada
Yeah.
does. Canada does. I was more speaking on like Norway,
Yes.
Sweden, like
Yeah.
Finland, those places up there.
Yeah.
Though they have very low diversity rates, and that's why they don't go through as much like racism
Yes.
issues in the
Mhm.
media. We still have an issue, and we need to fix it
Oh, yeah.
though.
Yes.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's harder sometimes to fix what is rather than think, okay, I can't fix this, I'm leaving, I'll go
Yeah.
start somewhere else.
Yeah, I think the mentality is that if it's not going well, you run away.
Yes.
And so that's a lot of people in our group, like you were saying, have that mentality. Like it's not good enough for them in America, so they're running away to other places.
Which works, but at the same time,
it does work.
but at the same time, if everybody here did that, then
There'd be
guess
no
where
point.
all those people are going to be?
Right.
in the same places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, it's exactly what happened with COVID. Everybody left those big states to go to the little ones. Guess where everybody is now? The little ones. And the little ones aren't so
Yes.
little anymore. And I mean, an influx of out-of-staters have been here recently. guess
Mhm.
why they came? Because the place they were at, they didn't like anymore, so they just left it.
Yeah,
On a
it'll be
smaller
interesting
scale.
to see if they stay.
Yeah, it will. The U.S. has big issues, and
Yeah.
and on a small scale is what we're hoping to help with,
Yeah,
especially in our local community. But
right.
Aaliyah's definitely a forefront of that.
I think that's wonderful. We are unfortunately out of time. It goes really fast. I would like to know, and these are thoughts that you can take away with you, how can something like NEK-TV, which is community TV, help?
It can really get our points across and bring awareness to our issues.
Then I would like to invite you to come up with ways in which we can do that. We could come into your school or meet with you elsewhere, or you can come in here.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love for us to be part of that change.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll run some ideas with the group,
Yeah,
and then I'll get in contact
Yeah.
with you.
great. Just think about how you can use this. This is
Mhm.
community access. That's its purpose.
Great,
Okay.
thank
And
you.
it costs nothing. So thank you both for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And I look forward to us doing this again.
Yes, me too.